Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a senior and accomplished coach from San Jose, California, USA, Mahesh Thakur. Mahesh, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. I'm excited to be on your show today.
Thank you. Mahesh is the Chief Executive Officer and a C suite coach. So, Mahesh, my first question, you've had a very impressive journey with some of the world's largest tech companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and GoDaddy. What was the pivotal moment that sparked your transition into executive coaching?
Great question, Ashutosh. During my time at Microsoft Bing, which is now called Microsoft AI, I truly had the privilege of working closely with many leaders, including Satya Nadella and his leadership team. And some of that work that we were doing was redefining the culture and the strategy for the company. Because traditionally, if you thought about Microsoft at that time, the significant revenues came from Microsoft Office, Windows. These products were being shipped once in 2 years or 3 years. And now we are trying to launch the world's most competitive search engine where we are literally launching products every day. And that's a very big change in terms of the company culture.
Mhm.
So I witnessed firsthand how shifting leadership mindset was the key to unlocking innovation and the unity beyond just the tech stack alone. So there was a specific executive offsite, Ashutosh, that remains etched in my memory,
Mhm.
where tensions were high, leaders were frustrated, and I saw brilliant strategies falter, not because of tech, but because of misalignment and fear. That moment revealed to me the immense power and the necessity, if you will, of coaching in order to help leaders break through the barriers of self doubt and build collective clarity.
Mhm.
Because no matter how big Microsoft was, we are trying to compete against the world's biggest search engine, which was Google. So it was a turning point for me in my career where I realized my deep purpose was in unlocking this kind of leadership transformation, which led me to earn my master certified coach credential and even create this company that I have called Decisive AI. So it's not just about building products, it's about building leaders ready to navigate that change with courage and with conviction.
Thank you. You worked with a wide variety of leaders. Can you share one story from your journey that truly highlights the power of leadership alignment in a transformative setting?
The power of leadership alignment when it comes to a transformative setting. The example I would bring here is one where we were at Amazon. This is after working at Microsoft, I went to work at Amazon. And what we would have there is what we would call is the one pagers and the six pagers. So for many people, Amazon is like MBO and steroids because you're creating an entire plan that the team will work on in a one pager and a six pager. When I entered the room, I took my first draft. And during that time, that first draft led to that immense discussion between three different general managers across Amazon for them to understand where we are and where we need to go. That whole thing, the premise of all that was my one pager.
Mhm.
And I simply felt the power of writing and writing with clarity because that not only allowed the leaders to fully understand what I was proposing, but also make this such a high quality discussion that in under 45 minutes, we arrived at two significant decisions, which would then go on to affect three different divisions, which were managed by these three different general managers, each of them managing billions of dollars in
Mm.
P&L, Ashutosh. To
Thank
me,
you.
that was such a powerful meeting and such
Mm.
a powerful reminder that when you think and you write, you're not just writing it for yourself, but you're communicating with clarity,
Mm.
and your own conviction becomes so high when you get in front of the leaders, no matter if it's Jeff Bezos or people working directly for Jeff Bezos.
Mm. Thank you. Let's now talk about your new avatar as a coach now, the next few questions after that. You help CEOs and C suite discover their true north.
Mhm.
Can you explain what this means and how finding their true north affects their decision making and their leadership?
So True North, when I think about it, right, I think about it like I'm that Sherpa who's
Mhm.
helping people get to first the base camp and then to the summit.
Mhm.
So I think about True North is something which requires commitment, dedication, hard work, and most importantly, realizing there's no going back. You got
Mm.
to really make that work for yourself and for your team. So it is more than just a metaphor.
Mhm.
It's that unwavering purpose and values that guide everyday leaders' decisions and behaviors in the organization. When
Mm.
CEOs discover and commit to their true north, they unlock not just the strategic clarity, but that emotional resilience, if you will, Ashutosh. And that alignment then happens across teams, across functions. Leaders with the clear true north act decisively, they inspire trust, and they create cultures where the execution thrive. Just like my previous example with Amazon. So that's where you could see the execution then is so clear, so perfect, because there's the understanding of what our true north is and how do we get there, how
Mm.
and when do we get there. So my coaching today helps executives peel back
Mm.
distractions, confront uncomfortable truths, and connect their personal purpose with the organizational goals.
Mm.
So the result then is cohesive leadership that sustains momentum through disruption, turning ambiguity into opportunity for
Mm.
the CEOs and their C suite members.
Wonderful. Thank you. And what do you believe is the most common mistake CEOs make when trying to align their leadership teams?
So CEOs, when I have seen two different types of CEOs, the ones who are really dialed into their company so much so that sometimes they end up micromanaging. And there are others who will hire the greatest talent, but then sometimes become disconnected because now they've become very comfortable
Mhm.
letting others lead and be at the front. So the balance or the truth lies somewhere in the middle. A pervasive error, Ashutosh, that I find is assuming alignment is about surface level agreement. So true alignment is felt in tough trade offs and the willingness to hold each other accountable despite discomfort. Many CEOs stop at consensus or polite agreement, but the highest performing leadership teams embrace conflict productively and clarify roles under pressure.
Mm.
Without this, strategies become diluted and execution just stalls. So I coach CEOs to foster candid dialogue and surface those hidden misalignments and get them comfortable talking about it and get their teams to understand that, guys, there is psychological safety. Open up, be yourself, and bring those problems, bring those issues to the forefront.
Mm. And what would you say is one trait you have consistently seen in top tier leaders across large organizations?
So one of my, and this is also one of my favorites, these leaders across the large organizations,
Mhm.
no matter how much they know, Ashutosh, they read really well.
Mhm.
They may be completing 1 to 2 books a week,
Mhm.
despite living in this world of AI. And sometimes they combine that with listening to podcasts such as yours. So when I see these leaders, they remain relentlessly curious,
Mhm.
yet humbly confident. Their conviction is very high, but their curiosity is at its peak. So these leaders challenge their own assumptions and seek diverse perspectives from across the room. And this curiosity fuels continuous learning and adaptability, qualities essential when navigating, especially an AI-led disruption world today. So they create, that psychologically safe space, not just for themselves by asking those questions, but also for others who can then observe their style of being curious, learning along the way, and being comfortable with being proven wrong.
Mm. Well said. And based on all the work you've done with so many leaders, how does leadership alignment impact the overall performance and culture of an organization?
So in the case of leadership alignment, the one key thing, it all stems from clarity.
Mm.
Most leaders have to do some inner work,
Mm.
whether it is with themselves or with their 5 or 10 direct reports first. That first gives them immense clarity, and
Mhm.
alignment is then a function of that kind of clarity. And so, in my experience, what I've seen is alignment, I see it as a huge catalyst for velocity. And once leadership teams share a clear direction and, in fact, involve their teams in that kind of a decision making process,
Mhm.
then what happens is that the decision cycles shorten and productivity rises. And the most important thing that happens is the silos break down. So in today's world where teams are remote or hybrid, you may have leaders based in the EMEA region, maybe in Dubai, somebody is leading US, and somebody is in Europe. So when you get these leaders in the room, whether they are from across different continents or different cities, what's important is to get them into a room,
Mhm.
break those silos. And I'll give you an example, Ashutosh. A mid-sized tech company that I advised after embedding one of my frameworks, which is called the AI ROI acceleration framework. 81% of those initiatives were then delivered on time and on
Mhm.
budget. This happened because they got rid of a lot of the noise, and the alignment happened when they looked at each other and said, yes, we all collectively agree to these, and this is what will help our company accelerate the
Mhm.
momentum. So you can imagine the confidence that the board had. Their board and their entire organization's confidence was restored in the leadership after they got to the 81%
Right.
of their initiatives launching on time and with the highest quality.
Mm. Well said. And
Thank you.
what is the most common barrier you have seen that prevents leaders from aligning with their teams, and how do you help them overcome this?
So one of the common barriers, as much as you would like leaders to be in a room, there is still this whole fear of conflict and vulnerability, which basically is top of the all the lists. Leaders avoid uncomfortable conversations to protect ego or perceived authority. Okay, and that's why sometimes the CEOs or the person with the highest rank order in the room should lead by asking questions, not making statements which look like decisions. You know, so the statements that they make have to be not seen as decisions. They should rather be, you know, more like open-ended questions, which then bring in the dialogue and let people decide,
Mm.
because that's what mature leaders do. So when
Right.
I do a lot of this intervention work or the offsite work with leadership teams, I create those safe spaces which basically model the vulnerability and leverage the structured process to surface hard truths.
Mm.
Hard truths could be sometimes things like our process is broken, or
Mm.
we always seem to get stuck here in this particular area,
Mm.
and we know we are weak there. So there is that sort of conversation that people need to have, and then somebody like me has to hold space for them.
Mhm.
And by normalizing that discomfort and anchoring conversations in shared goals and data,
Mm.
teams break through barriers and build that genuine trust to
Mm.
overcome what I mentioned is the fear of conflict and
Mm.
vulnerability.
Thank you. You also helped clients achieve very impressive results like a 2.7x revenue growth, and also help them increase their leadership net promoter scores. Tell me about this leadership net promoter score and what was the driving factor that has driven such successes?
Sure. So, first and foremost, I would say the leaders that we work with, they care a lot about the outcomes. They
Mm.
want to know, even if they feel that the change happened, the people who are investing in those leaders and
Mm.
their board members and the CEOs, they want to measure the impact. So
Mhm.
when I think about leadership NPS, it's basically the team saying, would you recommend, do you think that the CEO is doing their job, as an
Mm.
example? Or there might be a survey which says, would you hire the CEO for the next company? Or would you recommend the CEO to another company? You ask these questions, and there are similar questions that the CTO's entire 2,000 people organization might receive as an
Mm.
example. Okay,
Mm.
so what you do is you take the baseline metric before you begin an engagement, and then you take the measurement again after the 12-month or 18-month period to see where they are. So NPS, Ashutosh, just to get a little more technical here, NPS stands for Net Promoter Score.
Mhm.
Okay, so a lot of times if we are using AT&T as our cell phone service, or Reliance Geo, or Singapore Tel, depending on whichever carrier you have,
Mm.
sometimes you just get one question: would you recommend this service to your friend or a partner?
Mhm.
And that one question ends up deciding whether this person is a promoter or a distractor. So they will get a rate score from 1 to 10.
Mm,
Anybody who rates anywhere from 1 to 5 is considered a detractor. Anybody who rates 6 and 7 is neutral. Anybody who rates 8, 9, or 10 is a promoter.
mhm,
So what you do is you take the total number of promoters minus the total number of detractors.
mm,
That becomes your net promoter score. So
mhm,
we do that for leaders to help understand how many promoters they have before the coaching or the engagement or the offsite, and how many promoters do they have
mm,
after. So
mm.
that's how we got to the leadership
Right.
plus. We went from neutral to plus 55 for this
Mm.
organization. Does that
Fantastic.
clarify
Yep, it
the
does.
question? Does that give you the
It
clarity you
does.
need?
Now it helps me understand how you define net promoter scores. Moving on, Mahesh, what are some of the most effective tools or frameworks you use when guiding a leadership team through a strategic decision-making process?
Sure, Ashutosh. Ashutosh, as you know, I've worked at Microsoft and Amazon, and a lot of what I learned and built in those companies, I then took it forward in my journey
Yeah.
when I went over to work at GoDaddy
Hmm.
and Intuit. I took those frameworks with me and I expanded those. And then I worked further on them to get them more battle tested for the AI era by working with the companies who I offer my AI advisory services and my coaching services. So one of the frameworks is called the AI acceleration framework.
Hmm.
And that framework helps align every single initiative across the company to measure the returns that you're getting from that.
Mm.
What that helps you do is two things. One is, get rid of all the noise or all the initiatives which are not adding to your ROI. And the second, it absolutely gives you the right levers, the right tools, the right strategies to completely unlock the power of AI.
Hmm.
So many a times people might say, oh, wow, instead of three, I've got 13 AI initiatives actually leading to results. And hey, actually, these results have helped me improve my revenue per employee, which is an indicator of how much revenue is each employee producing in an organization. As
Hmm.
an example, if you have 10,000 as your, I'm just making this up, 10,000 as your annual revenue, and if you are 10 employees in the company,
Mm.
10,000 divided by 10, $1,000 is your revenue per employee as an example,
Mm.
right? So what you do is you measure the revenue per employee before, and then you
Mm.
work through these frameworks. Fast forward 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, we look at, hey, has your revenue per employee improved?
Mm.
Have the number of AI initiatives that you've launched gotten better? And then the second one, the second framework that I have, which I have a trademark, I have a trademark on them both. It's called the test and learn culture.
Mhm.
The test plus learn culture is something which I would say organizations that LinkedIn and Spotify, these companies have been around, Ashutosh, for like more than a decade. They've been
Mm.
around for decades. But if you look at them, they're still launching products every single day
Mm.
of the week in production. They are still innovating and staying at the forefront of what their customers want. They're
Mm.
still disrupting big time. So if you look at Spotify or LinkedIn or Anthropic or Amazon, they have this test plus learn methodology. So I've brought that into my AI advisory and coaching work in
Mm.
order to bring those companies that kind of framework, that kind of culture. And what that does, it enables iterative validation
Mhm.
under uncertainty.
Right.
Because when you're doing 100 things, how do you know? How do you methodically, scientifically know? How do you define success? How do you write down a hypothesis? It's almost like working scientifically on your wins and losses and understanding how that is making your organization smarter, because
Mm.
it's not just in the wins, it's in
Mm.
the losses, it's in the
Mm.
failed tests that your organizations learn. Oh, wow, this happened. This is how our customers responded.
Mm.
Now, it was not just something to be hidden under the rug. You got to bring it out and share with others, saying, this is what we learned, so that the next experiment or the test that we define across the company, it
Mm.
should be better, or it should be using this knowledge that we have. That's a
Mm.
very powerful um, culture transforming framework, if you will.
Mm. Thank you. I have time for three more questions. How do you coach CEOs to align their personal goals with the broader organizational vision, especially if there happens to be a gap?
It's a great question. I'll start with a reminder that end of the day, CEOs are also humans,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some of them are very, very motivated. I
Mm,
always tell people that if I have to motivate the CEO, it's a problem. These
mm,
are usually people who with deep, very powerful motivation and that whole understanding of where they want to go in life, where they want to take their company, where they want to take their customer, how do they want their employees to feel. So you have that. But what I start with them when I start with them is I start with a deep discovery on their personal values and aspirations.
mm,
I take that, and a lot of times it's a series of questions that I'll ask
mm,
so that I get exactly where they are on the compass. And once I have that, I map these to the organizational direction. Many a times they have that direction, and sometimes I'll sit down and go, all right, let's get your team involved to have the direction as 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 an alignment versus
mhm.
just creating your direction.
Right.
And then from there, Ashutosh, wherever the gap exists, I facilitate courageous conversations and strategic pivots or reinforce legacy planning to ensure authenticity
Mm,
and shared purpose. As an example, if the CEO is talking about things 3 years out, but if he's going to be exiting in 2 years or if he's retiring, then we
mhm,
want to make sure that they're bringing in whoever the next successor is or whoever they think might take on the role, even if it is interim, to be
mm,
able to talk about those things 1 year, 3 year, 5 years out. And
mm,
this is again where alignment here fuels leadership magnetism and sustainable impact in those
mm,
conversations.
mm. Well done. Great response. Thank you. Um, what role do vulnerability and openness play in creating strong leadership? And how do you encourage these traits in your coaches?
Yeah, that one, Ashutosh, is close to my heart. I will tell you that one thing I tell leaders is even in the all hands, as much as they want to prepare in the all hands where they're going to face 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 people,
Mm,
one of the things I tell them is I want you to feel the crowd. I want them to feel what you're feeling. So when you go in there,
mm,
just look at them, gaze 10, 15, 20 seconds, feel the room, breathe the room, understand the sentiment and align. Because I think for CEOs and the C-suite, a lot of this is the work of energy. A lot
mm.
of this is head, it's heart, and then the head, oftentimes.
Right. Right.
So my biggest ask from them or coaching to them is I remind them that vulnerability builds trust and
Mm,
connects leaders to their teams, to their organizations at a human level. Even if
mm,
they are not in the same room, they are listening to them on a Zoom call 5,000 miles away, 10,000 miles away. What they have to model is openness by sharing their own journey and setbacks
mm,
and create that psychologically safe space for an honest dialogue, which basically means you don't have to have all the answers. You can go there in front of your crowd and say, these are the things we are clear about. These are still, unclear. These are things still work in progress. We appreciate your patience and or your support.
mhm.
You would be surprised how many people appreciate that transparency. But that can only happen when the leader knows that vulnerability builds trust. So,
Right.
vulnerability is a gateway to learning, innovation, and resilience.
Mm,
Qualities I nurture consciously with every client that I work with.
thank you. And my last question to you, you have coaches all over the world. How do you adapt your coaching strategies when it comes to different cultural contexts?
So it's a great question. I work with leaders in the US, in Asia. They could be in Singapore, Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, and they could be in the GCC. They could be in Dubai.
Mhm,
So one of the things that we all have to remember is that the culture shapes leadership norms dramatically. It's like a
mhm,
huge impact. I listen deeply and adapt my pacing, my communication, and frameworks to fit local decision making styles,
mm,
hierarchical norms, and relationship dynamics. So, as an example, in GCC, Ashutosh, relationship building and trust are foundational.
mhm,
In Asia, consensus and respect govern the decision flow, believe it or
mm,
not. And in the US, what we see here is directness and speed. That's what is valued. Just be direct.
mm,
Let's roll, let's go high speed. So depending on where I'm working, I will tailor my approach without compromising the outcomes for
mm,
my clients and their organization.
mm. Wonderful. And on that note, Mahesh, I just want to say Thank you for an amazing conversation about your journey. I think we covered some very interesting ground on different aspects of coaching CEOs and C suite leaders. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh. I loved our conversation today, and it's such an honor and a pleasure to be in this conversation with you and to be on your show, The Brand Called You.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for The Brand Called You.